All right, so let's get right into it. We're going to talk about something that is quite literally right under our feet. It's all about the living soil and a hidden contamination chain that, believe me, affects every single one of us. So let me ask you something. Have you ever actually stopped and thought about it? After you flush the toilet or you run the dishwasher, where does all that water really end up?
Well, the answer might be a little closer to home than you'd like to think. We're about to follow the journey of our everyday household waste. And spoiler alert, it's a journey that often takes a surprising detour right back to our own dinner plates.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning with the foundation of this whole system, the soil itself, because it's facing a pretty serious crisis, one that most of us never even get a chance to see. So I think this is fascinating. We tend to think of soil as just, well, dirt, right? But it's so much more. The source material calls it a dynamic natural reactor. Think about that. It's a living, breathing system that's built to transform pretty much anything we throw at it. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. It's under unprecedented pressure. Our modern way of life it's just too much for this natural system to handle. So where is all this pressure coming from? Well, you might be surprised to hear that it starts right inside our own homes, with what one of the sources we looked at calls our very own household toxic cocktail. And we're not just talking about, a few coffee grounds or leftover food scraps. Our wastewater, and that's all the water from our sinks, our showers, our toilets, it's this incredibly complex mix. Yeah, you've got the organic stuff, but then you've got nitrogen from, well, you've got phosphates and sulfates from all our cleaning products. And get this, even heavy metals like lead, cadmium, and chromium. It's basically a chemical soup that we're mixing up every single day. But wait, it gets even more complicated. Because on top of all that traditional waste, we've now got this whole new category that scientists are calling emerging contaminants. This is the stuff our grandparents never had to deal with. We're talking about leftover pharmaceuticals, things like antibiotics, chemicals from shampoos and lotions that can mess with hormones, and yep, you guessed it, microplastics. Tiny little bits of plastic from, well, pretty much everything. This chart really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? I mean, each line here tells a pretty scary story. You've got heavy metals, which can cause cancer, coming from our gray water, the water from sinks and showers. Phosphates from our detergents completely mess with the soil's natural balance. Microplastics, they're like these tiny little toxic sponges soaking up other chemicals. And the antibiotics we flush away, they're literally helping create antibiotic-resistant superbugs in the soil. The big takeaway here is that none of this stuff is harmless. It all has an impact. Okay, so all these contaminants are now in the soil, but the problem is they don't just stay put. And that brings us to the next crucial part of the story, the poisoned food chain. The source material has a term for this, the soil, plant, animal, human continuum. It sounds complex, but it's actually super simple, and this visual breaks it down perfectly. First, the contaminants build up in the soil. Then, the crops we grow soak them up like a sponge. After that, livestock eats those contaminated plants. And finally, you see where this is going, we eat the plants and the animals. It's a straight shot, a direct delivery system from our kitchen sink right into our bodies. And let's be absolutely crystal clear about what's at stake here. The source material doesn't mince words. This isn't some abstract environmental problem. The end of this chain is us. We end up exposed to cancer-causing metals, endocrine disruptors that mess with our hormones, and antibiotic-resistant bacteria. That's the real-world human consequence of this hidden chain. And this isn't just a hypothetical scenario. It's happening right now on a massive scale with a very real, very human cost. Just take a look at this number. 90%. Let that sink in for a second. In certain parts of South Asia, as much as 90% of all wastewater is poured directly onto farm fields with zero treatment. None. And this chart really shows you why that's happening. It's a huge infrastructure gap. You see, while many developed regions have treatment systems we take for granted, vast parts of the world just don't. And for millions of farmers, this isn't some kind of lazy choice. It's a harsh reality. They have to use that water to grow their crops. And this is where the environmental problem becomes a deeply human tragedy. Because when people get sick from the food they eat and the water they drink, that means massive medical bills. For families who are already just trying to get by, this isn't just a health issue, it's an economic disaster that can trap them in a cycle of poverty for generations. Okay, so the problem is obviously enormous. It's heavy stuff. But the story doesn't end there. Far from it. Now, let's shift gears and talk about the solutions. Let's talk about how we can start healing our living soil. The research really points to two main paths forward, kind of a two-pronged attack on the problem. On one hand, we can leverage the incredible power of nature itself. And on the other, we can use some really cool cutting-edge technology to intercept pollutants right at the source. So let's check out both. And this is where it gets really cool, I think. Look at these nature-based solutions. They're so elegant. There's something called phytoremediation, where we can use specific plants, like this vetiver grass, to literally suck heavy metals out of the ground. We can build wetlands that act like giant natural water filters, or we can amend the soil with something called biochar. It's basically a superpowered charcoal that grabs onto toxins and just doesn't let go, so the plants can't absorb them. All right, now for the tech side of things. 98%. What in the world is that? Well, that's the incredible accuracy rate of new AI-powered robots that are designed to sort our waste. Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing. These aren't your average robots. They're using things like computer vision and hyperspectral imaging to basically see the chemical signature of every piece of trash. This allows them to separate plastics, metals, even old batteries from the good organic stuff with almost perfect precision. And at the same time, you've got smart sensors that are constantly analyzing wastewater and tweaking the purification process in real time. It's a perfect example of technology working hand in hand with biology.
So, you've got nature on one side, technology on the other, both working to solve this problem. But what's the end game? What's the big idea here? Well, that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the path to circularity. The big goal here is something called a circular bioeconomy, and it is a total game changer. It's about shifting away from our current model, take, make, throw away. Instead, we create a closed loop, a system where our waste isn't actually waste anymore. It gets transformed back into a valuable resource that can actually heal and regenerate the soil that feeds us. And the benefits are just huge. When we actually close that loop, it's not just about preventing pollution anymore. We're creating safe, organic matter to enrich our soil. We're cutting way back on our dependence on synthetic fertilizers. And a massive bonus, we're helping in the fight against climate change by sequestering carbon in the ground. It's a win-win-win. So there you have it. We've seen the problem, which is huge, but we've also seen the incredible solutions that are out there. We literally have the tools from both nature and cutting-edge AI to heal our soil. So I guess the only real question left is, are we ready to do it? Are we ready to close the loop?